Thank you for joining us for this presentation on an overview of the financial aid application process, where we'll be going over the FAFSA, as well as the main federal and state financial aid programs that students can apply for the class of 2025. The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is the main application students would complete in order to apply for federal, state. A lot of colleges require their own institutional scholarships. And then some private scholarships request a copy of the FAFSA in order to apply for some private scholarships. For this year, the FAFSA will become available on December 1st, 2024 for the 2025-26 award year. Be aware as a lot of programs require the FAFSA, but some programs also have a separate application in addition to the FAFSA. This would apply for Promise, as requires both the FAFSA and the Promise application, as well as the West Virginia Invest Grant requires the FAFSA and the Invest application. For those applications, you can go to cfwv.com and to apply for our state financial aid programs. As you're looking for different colleges, you want to ask them if they have separate applications for their own institutional scholarships in their deadlines that you want to be aware of. Also for private scholarships, they have their own application, their own deadlines, and so you want to be aware of those. Before you complete the FAFSA, you need to create a studentaid.gov account, also known as an FSA ID. This is a username and password that each person that fills out a portion of the FAFSA needs to create. This gives you access in order to log in, sign your FAFSA, log back in if you need to make corrections, and allows you to access other federal financial aid websites. This again is a username and password you create. You can link it to your email address as well as your cell phone. You need to create at least 3 to 5 days prior to starting the FAFSA so that it can be verified by the Social Security Administration. Again, the student needs one. At least one of the parents and possibly both parents may need an FSA ID in order to complete the FAFSA. As I mentioned, the FAFSA becomes available in December for the 2025-26 academic year. While the FAFSA itself does not have a deadline, you can file out the FAFSA at any point during the course of the year. Specific programs do have deadlines, and so you want to be aware of the March 1st deadline for the Promise Scholarship, where you need to file both the Promise application and the FAFSA. The West Virginia State Grant or West Virginia Higher Education Grant has a deadline where you need to submit the FAFSA by April 15th. And then West Virginia Invest has a priority deadline at April 15th where you need to submit both the FAFSA and the West Virginia Invest Grant application. Be aware the FAFSA changed this year, and so where it was one application, they've split it out into different roles where each person who contributes information is called a contributor, and they would log in separately with their FSA ID or studentaid.gov account in order to complete their portion of the FAFSA. A contributor for the FAFSA is just someone who contributes information, not necessarily someone who contributes financially to the student's education. Either the parent or the student can start the FAFSA. Once they finish their portion, they would then invite the other person to complete their portion of the FAFSA. Again, you need to have that FSA ID or studentaid.gov account created prior to logging in to complete your portion of the FAFSA. Each person who logs in order to contribute information also needs to be able to give consent for the IRS to release information. So even if you didn't file taxes in 2023 with the federal government, you still need to give consent for the IRS to say you didn't fill out a tax return, or if you did, they will then populate your tax information on the back end to your FAFSA. Just be aware as you're inviting people to contribute information to the FAFSA that you need to make sure the name, email address, social security number, and date of birth match what is on their FSA ID. Also be aware that all contributors have to submit their information in order for FAFSA to actually be submitted for processing. Until all the contributors enter in their information, the FAFSA is not submitted to be processed. One of the sections on the FAFSA, the dependency status questions. These questions determine whether you have to list parents' information on the FAFSA or not. If you're 24 years old, if you're a graduate or professional student, if you're married as of the day you fill out the FAFSA, if you have legal dependents or children that you're providing more than half support to, if both parents are deceased or you're a ward of the court, if you're a veteran or active duty military. For National Guard, active duty is only if you've been called up for purposes other than training. If you've been in foster care at any time since age 13, if you're an emancipated minor, if you have legal guardianship assigned to someone other than the biological parents, or if you're homeless or unaccompanied youth, if you answer yes to any of these questions, then you do not put parents' information on the FAFSA. If you have answered yes to any one of these questions, it's just the student's information that goes on the FAFSA. There are situations, which I'll go over here on a future slide, if you're not able to answer yes to one of these questions, but you're unable to put parents' information on the FAFSA, I'll go over that here in a little bit. Things to watch out for as you're completing the FAFSA is family size. We always encourage everyone to enter in their family size. The FAFSA will give you an option to pull the number of exemptions from your 2023 tax return in order to answer that question, family size. We would recommend you just enter in the family size as it is today. For parents' information, which parent goes on the FAFSA? If both parents both biological parents are living together, whether they're married or not married, both incomes would go on the FAFSA. In instances of divorce or separation, you have to determine which parent provides the majority of the financial support to the student. Once you answer that question, if that parent is remarried, then that's the parent who provides the majority of this financial support and the step parent's information that goes on the FAFSA, and then the other biological parent would not be reported. And so just watch that carefully in terms of which parent should go on the FAFSA. As I mentioned, contributors, this is different. And so it's roles-based where each one has to log in separately. There may be instances where if the parents filed separately in 2023, to where both parents will need the FSA ID in order to log in separately to fill out their portions of the FAFSA. Dependency status questions, again, if you're not able to answer yes to any of those dependency status questions, but you're not able to provide parents information on the FAFSA, there is unusual circumstances questions on the FAFSA that you can answer, which then puts you in a holding pattern until you can provide additional information to the colleges where they can verify your dependency status. And they'll grant you a provisional status until you can provide that documentation and they can finalize it. If you're in that type of situation, they cannot process any financial aid until they can finalize your dependency status. So you just want to watch that carefully. The other question is the unsubsidized Stafford loan only question. If you answer yes, then that is all you'll receive is the unsubsidized Stafford loan. So you want to make sure you answer no to that question so you can be considered for other types of financial aid. And then the high school completion question will ask you what type of high school completion you have, whether it's a high school degree, homeschooled, or high school equivalency test. And then there's a unsure. If you answer unsure, if you don't answer the question at all, then you won't be eligible for financial aid. So you want, as a lot of colleges as well as the state uses that question to verify high school completion status. So you want to make sure you answer that question. As I mentioned, 2023 tax information will be used in most cases once you give your consent, which you're required to do in order to be eligible for any types of financial aid. Then the IRS will populate your information once you submit the FAFSA. In cases where you did file separately in 2023, you might have to manually then enter in your 2003 tax information from your tax returns. Once you submit the FAFSA and all contributors have entered in their information and it's been submitted, it will be processed within 72 hours and the student will get an email saying it's been processed, and then you can log back in to view your FAFSA submission summary. The FAFSA submission summary is the results of your FAFSA that you want to review and make sure all the information is correct and that there was nothing wrong with your FAFSA. This is also the form that a lot of private scholarships might ask a copy for, is the FAFSA submission summary. You can log in and download a PDF in order to apply for private scholarships, but you definitely want to review it to make sure all the information is correct. If you find something's wrong on the FAFSA submission summary, or if you want to add additional colleges to your FAFSA, you can log back in and correct your information. Just make sure the contributors are signing off so that it can be processed. The U.S. Department of Education has a random selection process where they flag FAFSAs for verification, and so where the colleges are then required to verify the information on the FAFSA is correct. If you are flagged for verification and you get those requests from the colleges, make sure you're complying in a timely manner so that your financial aid is not delayed and can get processed in a timely manner. If the information on the FAFSA changes to where your 2023 income isn't representative of what you're making in 2025, you can request a special circumstance or professional judgment form from the colleges you're looking at. There's a form, you provide supporting documentation. So if you're making less, you had a one-time income that you're not going to receive in 2025. You have a lot of unusual medical expenses that are not covered by insurance that you're having to pay out of pocket for. You have a change in marital status. You can ask for the financial aid office based on the form and supporting documentation to make adjustments to your FAFSA to reflect those circumstances, which may qualify you for additional financial aid. Once the college receives your FAFSA, they will go through this process of setting your cost of attendance, which is a budget, and that is the maximum amount of financial aid that you can receive based on that cost of attendance. They will subtract the student aid index, which is an index number that's calculated from the information on the FAFSA in order to get your eligibility for financial need or need-based financial aid. The cost of attendance varies significantly from school to school, but it also varies within a school. And so you have tuition fees that you pay directly to the college that's part of the cost of attendance. You also have housing and food, which is going to vary whether you live on campus, whether you live off campus, or whether you live at home. But you can get financial aid to help cover that expense. There's also, you can get financial aid to help cover books and supplies, transportation expenses, which is the cost of just driving back from home to the college. You can get personal expenses, soap, shampoo, laundry money, those types of things. The cost of a computer can be included, as well as the cost to study abroad in a different country. All those things make up cost of attendance that you can get financial aid to help cover. When we talk about the student aid index, this is the index number. Obviously, income is a major driver of that student aid index, but so is assets. And so when we talk about assets, it will ask for your cash, savings, and checking. It'll also ask for investments, which would be any taxable investment accounts. You would not include any type of retirement account. So a 401k, a pension, an IRA. You would not include life insurance. You would not include the value of your home on the FAFSA. And so you want to watch those questions carefully. You would include if you have rental property, if you have a business, you would include the net value. So the appraised value minus any debt to get your net value that you would report on the FAFSA. Family size goes into it, as well as the age of the parents and how close you are to retirement, whether there's one parent or two parents, and all those things go into the calculation of the student aid index. Once you submit the FAFSA, then the FAFSA is going to be your application for all these federal financial aid programs. The Pell Grant, which is a need-based financial aid program, the Supplemental Education Opportunities Grant, also known as SEOG, which is a block grant that the colleges award to their Pell eligible students. You have federal work study, where students can work part-time in order to earn money towards their educational expenses. You have the Teach Grant for those who want to teach, but you do have to teach 4 out of the first 8 years you're out of college in a high need field and a low income school, or else you have to pay it back. There's also a federal direct loan program. So there's Stafford Loan Program, which is a student loan in the student's name. There's 2 types. There's a subsidized, where the government pays the interest on the loan while the student's going through school. Then there's an unsubsidized, which accrues interest while the student's going through school. In each case, there's not a credit check. There's not another application that the student needs to complete. There's a promissory note the students would complete, as well as entrance counseling. There are annual limits to what the students can borrow, not only for a year, but also for their academic program. And then they don't start repayment until 6 months after they're no longer enrolled half-time. Then there's also a federal direct PLUS loan program. The PLUS loan program is a parent loan in the parent's name. There's a credit check, but the parent can take out a loan in their name for the cost of the student's education, up to the cost of attendance. There's also the West Virginia Student Aid Management System. This is the SAM system, which is what we call it, is the system in which students would apply for state financial aid in West Virginia. This allows them to create an account where they can then apply for our programs, make edits to their application, check the status of their application, view their award information. They can submit documentation to us, as well as contact us if they have any questions. When they complete the account for their student aid management, they will let us know whether they want to be contacted via email or via text. All of our email communications or award notices are sent by email and text. And so I encourage you to keep your contact information up to date. We always encourage people not to use their school email address because you do not have access to that school email address once you're no longer enrolled. And so whether you're in high school or in college, we encourage you not to use that school email address, but to use a personal email address so that you have access to it once you're no longer enrolled, so that we can communicate to you regarding your financial aid. One of the programs you can apply for is the West Virginia Invest Grant, which is a last dollar in grant. It pays for tuition, mandatory fees, and approved academic fees that are not covered by other scholarships and grants. It can only be used for eligible certificate and associate degree programs at our participating community colleges in the state of West Virginia. So you can go to cfw.com for a list of programs and colleges that participate in the program. You do have to be a resident for 12 months prior to applying. You have to have a high school degree. You can't be in default on a student loan. You have to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. You can't have a degree of associate's degree or higher, and you can have attempted more than 90 credit hours of college credit. You do have to be enrolled in an eligible academic program at a participating school. You do have to maintain a 2.0 GPA at the end of each year and maintain satisfactory academic progress, which is a policy established by your college. You can go to cfw.com to apply for the Invest Grant. You also need to complete the FAFSA. Application becomes available on October 1st. While we have a priority deadline of April 15th, we do allow applications and award on a rolling basis. Our year is summer, fall, spring, and you do have to reapply each year. You do have to take an approved drug screen. And so if you are eligible for the West Virginia Invest Grant, we will then communicate to you via email, text of when your dates are to be able to take the drug screen. The student is responsible for paying for that drug screen, and you do have to take it through our process. You also, once you take the drug screen and we get the results, we will then send you an email to complete a promissory note where you agree to live in West Virginia for 2 years once you're no longer enrolled. So once you're no longer enrolled, at least have time, we'll reach out to you to supply documentation to us to verify that you're enrolled over a 2-year period. If you don't provide that documentation or you don't live in West Virginia for 2 years, once you're no longer enrolled, then you do have to pay it back. There's also a requirement that you have to complete 2 hours of community service every semester that you're receiving the Invest Grant. One of our other programs is the West Virginia Higher Education Grant. This is a need-based program based solely on the FAFSA. You do need to file the FAFSA each year by April 15th in order to be considered. One of the things with the FAFSA that it does need to be correct by the time we do our first round of awards in May. So we will only make awards up until as long as there's funding available. Once there's no longer funding available, then we create a wait list and we'll award people on the wait list as funding becomes available. But to be able to be considered, you really want to make sure your FAFSA is correct around May, at the beginning of May, before we do our first round of awards. For the higher education grant, you do have to maintain a 2.0 GPA or have a 2.0 GPA to be considered. It's also, as I mentioned, need-based, and so your student aid index needs to be between -1,500 and 13,000 in order to be considered, and you can receive up to 3,400, which is the estimated annual award for 25-26. We also have whereas the higher education grant is need-based and is for full-time students, we have a separate grant, which is the HEAPS grant for part-time students. And so this is through your college in West Virginia. You want to ask them if you're part-time that they should have an application process for you to apply for a HEAPS grant. There are some eligibility requirements that you have to meet in order to be eligible for the HEAPS grant if you are enrolled part-time. We also have a HEAPS workforce grant for those in a short-term training program of 12 months or less, where you can get up to $2,000. It is need-based, so you need to fill out both a HEAPS workforce application and a FAFSA, and you go to cfw.com for information on that. The Promise Scholarship is a merit-based scholarship program, so it's not based on need, it's only based on merit. It's for high school seniors that they can apply for initial consideration. Once students are enrolled in college, they cannot apply for initial consideration. You have to have a 3.0 high school GPA overall in your core classes. You have to score a qualifying score on either the ACT or the SAT. So a 21 on the ACT with at least a 19 in each of the 4 sections, or 1080 with a 510 in each of the sections on the SAT. The application opens up on October 1st. The deadline is March 1st, where you need to file both the FAFSA and the Promise application at cfw.com. The qualifying test scores, though, you have until July of 2025 in order to get a qualifying score on either the ACT or SAT test. So July for the ACT, June of 2025 for the SAT. We do super scores, so we will mix and match your best scores in the different subsections to get your overall best score to qualify for Promise. We automatically get your scores from ACT usually 4 weeks after the test. For SAT, they only send us the scores twice a year, in January for the fall scores, in July for the spring scores. So I really encourage you for the SAT to list our SAT code when you're registering of 3456 so that we can get your code or your score sooner. If we don't get your score sooner and you want to be considered and not have to wait until SAT sends us, then you have to pay an additional fee. So we really encourage you as you're registering to list our code of 3456 on the SAT, since we only get the scores automatically twice a year. For Promise, you do have to complete half your graduation requirements at West Virginia High School. You also have to be a resident of West Virginia 12 months prior to applying. If you miss the deadline, you can still apply, but you wouldn't be considered until spring if funding is available. So Promise will cover tuition mandatory fees up to $5,500. It cannot be used out of state for any reason, but if you do attend out of state, you still want to apply while you're in high school for Promise. If you decide to go out of state, we will defer Promise for up to 1 year, and if you decide to come back, you can have Promise reinstated, provided you were eligible coming out of high school. You do have 6 years in which to use Promise, and so if you need to take a leave of absence, you can defer it as long as you use it within that 6-year period. Promise can be used up to 8 semesters for a 4-year degree, up to 4 semesters for a 2-year degree. In order to renew it, you do not have to reapply. All you have to do is maintain a 2.75 cumulative GPA at the end of each year. And our year is fall, spring, summer. So at the end of the summer, as long as you have a 2.75 cumulative GPA, and you've completed at least 30 credit hours for a 2-semester award or 15 credit hours for a 1-semester award, the college will automatically renew it for the following year. If you do not meet the renewal requirements, starting for 2024, there's a new opportunity for students to request reinstatement for the Promise Scholarship once they've met the requirements for renewal. So once you've met the GPA or once you've met the credit hour requirements, you can request one time only to have it reinstated. Every semester it takes you to meet the renewal requirements. Once you lose it, you lose a semester of eligibility. Again, you go to cfw.com/promise in order to apply and complete the Promise application. The West Virginia STEM Scholarship is for those interested in going to into a science, technology, engineering, or math field. The health sciences and medical fields do not qualify. And so one of the requirements for this program is you have to work in a STEM field 1 year for every year you receive it, or else you have to pay it back. And those health science and medical fields do not qualify as a STEM field in order to have it canceled. You can get up to $3,000. It is highly competitive, based on college GPA for college students, based on high school GPA and test scores for high school students. The application becomes available October 1st with a deadline of March 1st. We also have the Underwood Smith Teaching Scholars Program for those who want to teach either math, science, special education, or elementary education. The application opens July 15th. The first round deadline is December 31st. It is a 3-round application process. The second round is an essay. The third round is a video that the student creates. In order to be considered, they can receive up to $10,000, automatically renewable each year up to 4 years, but they do have to teach in one of those critical need fields for 5 years, or else they have to pay it back in West Virginia. We also have a nursing scholarship for those who want to go into nursing, but they do have to commit to work or teach in nursing in West Virginia, or else they have to pay it back. They also have to be halfway through their academic program in order to be considered for either an LPN degree, an RN degree, or a graduate, master's, doctorate nursing degree. Application is on cfw.com. It opens April 15th with the deadline of June 1st for any awards, fall, spring, or summer. The different colleges that you're looking at, you want to ask what type of scholarships they offer or grants and what those applications, what those deadlines are, what the renewal requirements are, so that you can maximize the amount of financial aid that you're eligible for. Also be aware of the private scholarships that are out there through community foundations, employers, churches, different corporations. Your high school counselor is a great resource of private scholarships in your area. There's also free scholarship searches in order to find more national or regional scholarships. The state also has a college savings plan. There's the Smart 529 college savings plan and the Jumpstart savings plan. The Jumpstart savings plan is where you can save for tools for your profession, whereas the 529 plan can be used for other educational expenses. Anything you contribute, you can claim as a deduction on your state tax return. Anything that you earn on those investments in the savings account is tax-free as long as you use it for educational expenses. The Academic Common Market is set up for those programs that you're looking for that are not offered in West Virginia. We have agreements with colleges outside of West Virginia where you can pay in-state tuition. You can go to sreb.org for more information. CFWV is our financial aid website where you can get all information on our state financial aid programs as well as college search and career planning. You can log in and create your WSAM account in that upper right-hand corner where you can apply for state financial aid and review your eligibility. We have a texting program that you can sign up where you can get text messages usually around once a month through your senior in high school and through your first year in college. And then if you have questions, you can text us and then we can answer and respond back to those texts if you have any questions as you go through the college search process or through your first year in college. If you need assistance, you can contact the federal government at 1-800-433-3243 if you have questions on the FAFSA or creating the studentaid.gov or FSAID account. If you have questions about the financial aid process, you can also contact us here at the state at 1-877-987-7664 and be happy to help you through the financial aid process. If you have questions on our website and the communications that we send, there's a chat bot that you can click on in order to ask your questions, or during our office hours, you can live chat with our staff in order to get your questions answered. Thank you for participating in this presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you with any questions you have regarding financial aid. Thank you.